big hello and welcome to the first ever ACH for Yachts web live. We're coming live to you from south of France, Marseille, the headquarters of Airbus Corporate Helicopters. My name is Nitin SAREEN. I'm head of marketing for ACH. And on behalf of the entire ACH team, I'd like to welcome you all attending from multiple time zones across the world. Thanks for sparing your time for what should be a very interesting and interactive session with a whole string of panelists that we have across the yachting and helicopter industry. Having helicopters on board yachts until a few years back was more an exception than a rule. However, in the last 8 to 10 years, we have seen a quantum growth on the number of helicopters operating on board yachts or carrying on some missions intermittently. And to discuss this and everything around the topic of helicopters on board super yachts, we've got a fine set of specialists as panelists for this interaction. During this session, you're going to hear from a designer of super yachts. You're going to also hear from a representative from one of the most iconic shipyards building super yachts and delivering them around the world, a leading and a world-class brokerage of super yachts, an operator that excels in operating helicopters on board super yachts for years, a seasoned credit executive from a prominent financial institution who has over 20 years of experience financing aviation and yachting products, as well as our own in-house specialist in the Airbus Corporate Helicopters team that has had a past in the sailing, yachting side and is now part of our team here. But before we get started, just a few housekeeping reminders. As we've got a lot of people joining today, we've muted the microphone interaction. However, that should not stop you from interacting through the chat or the comments box that is available in your WebEx window. We will be taking all your comments and questions at the very end of the panel discussion. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to point out a few statistics just to set the perspective right in terms of what we are talking about when it comes to helicopters on board super yachts. As we know, yachts come in all shapes and sizes. However, when it comes to operating helicopters on board super yachts, you're generally talking about over 40-meter size of super yachts. Now, scanning the yachting fleet across the world, there are approximately 1,100 super yachts over 40 meters worldwide. And out of those 1,100 super yachts over 40 meters size, there's about 350 of them that have certified helidecks. Yes, 350 out of 1,100 super yachts have helidecks on board. So that's a pretty large number. And of course, at ACH, we track helicopter fleet worldwide. And when we look at the number of helicopters that are dedicated to super yachts, there are approximately 130 of them. And this number does not take into account the odd charters and the missions that we see from time to time of helicopters being brought to a super yacht on a touch-and-go approach. So all in all, we're talking about a significant number, which is further being grown on an yearly basis, as currently we estimate there's about 40 to 50 in-built super yachts that are either going to have helidecks on board or are seriously considering them. With that sort of an ecosystem in mind, there's a lot of questions that ponder everyone, especially given the current environment. What is going on in the super yacht industry and, of course, with helicopters on board super yachts? What are some of the trends when it comes to having helidecks on board super yachts? What are some of the do's and don'ts in terms of operating helicopters on board super yachts? To talk about this and much, much more, I'd now like to welcome our very first panelist, Daniel NERHAGEN. Daniel, for those of you who don't know him, he is an exceptional sailing enthusiast, but also is a yacht designer by profession. He's got approximately 20 years of solid experience in the marine luxury industry and currently is a partner at Tillberg Design of Sweden, where his focus has been to further focus on creating more and more yacht designs with helidecks integrated, as that's been one of the trends that they are catering to. So Daniel, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, Nitin. It's a pleasure being part of this panel today.
Well, thank you very much for sparing your time, Daniel. Daniel is based in Sweden, and Daniel, we really appreciate you connecting with us. So just to get started, what are you seeing today in the market?
If you had asked me in February this year, I would have said very positive, but then things started to be a little bit shaky in March and April, with the countries closing down, airlines stopping all flights. We saw the marine market, especially the cruise, completely stop. We saw shipyards closing down. So we were very worried in the beginning of May. What will this take us? And then we have seen a very rapid recovery on the market during the summer. A lot of owner teams have seen potential and seen possibilities to dig into new projects. So we have had a high interest, and already ongoing projects has increased in speed. So a lot of the cruise projects have been stopped or on pause, and we have a lot of free turnkey suppliers, shipyards looking for new work and so on. So at the moment, I see a very active market, very positive trends. The challenge at the moment is traveling, I think, because it's very difficult to meet. And for this type of projects, you need to meet and sit together in a room. So that's a challenge, although online has proven to be working much better than ever expected. So I would see potentially for the future a lot of more online meetings and so going on for the projects, to also help us all to be able to work more efficient and not travel so much. So at the moment, it looks very positive on the market, I would say.
That is certainly very, very encouraging to know, Daniel. I remember when we touched base to prep up for this panel discussion about a couple of weeks back, you were shuttling between Middle East and Sweden. So obviously, we see that there's a lot of activity out there. Now, one of the things that we discussed before, and I'd like you to highlight to all of the attendees today, is when you look at the designs of today, in terms of the super yachts, the most notable super yachts in the market today, to what is on the drawing board, what do you see as some of the differences?
I would say I see a couple of trends. One being larger super yachts, and larger, they're quite big in size, but that also means more guests on board. So they cannot follow the regular yacht code, so they will sail under SOLAS. And by being so big, they're also much more expensive. And then we are now seeing mergers between a commercial ship and a super yacht. So basically the owner areas will become super yacht, and then the more support areas of the vessel will be more commercial. And they will have a longer range, so they can sail anywhere, and with a lot of garage space. So we call them the Swiss Army knife, and they will have everything on board, all the toys and tenders, submarines, and of course seaplanes and helicopters. So they really have everything an owner needs on the yacht. Another trend we see is kind of a crossover between a super yacht, a charter yacht, and a mini cruiser. That's something we have had many requests on, and that's in the passenger range of 40 to 100 people. They want the yacht look, they want the high-end feeling, but they want to have it more as a cruise experience. So you don't charter a yacht, you have a dedicated route, so to say, where it's going. So that's also a growing trend. And with the helicopter as a part of that as well. And all the toys and tenders.
Right, right. So,
Yeah.
so one of the things that really we are curious about, because you must be interacting with both the current and the potential owners of these super yachts. Do you see any difference in terms of the owner's profile? Are they getting younger? Are they looking at some different sort of objectives they have while owning these great vessels?
Yes, for sure we see a clear difference. Many of the older owners had their yachts parked, so to say, use it more as a hotel or a party hub, and you moved it from locations and so on. The new owners are much more active and use it much more with family and friends. So that's a big trend. And during the pandemic here, you could see a lot of the yacht owners taking to their yachts and escaping. And when you're living on a yacht for several weeks or a month, you see a completely different need. The way, if you visit your yacht for a week or two, that's one thing, but if you're living on it, it's a completely different thing. So you need more storage space, waste space. You need also different kind of rooms if you have your kids with you, so you can have home study and all that. And with the good communication we see today, a lot of owners will most probably spend more time working from their yachts in the future. So that's a difference from the current owners, so to say.
That is very, very interesting indeed. I have to ask you this, as you're a designer. How do you perceive helidecks on super yachts? Do you perceive them as a disruption in your designs, or do you perceive them as an opportunity?
I would say it's part of the package. We have limo tenders, chase boat, ribs, and that's all access from the sea. But for sure, the easiest and fastest way to get onto your yacht is by air. So that's super important. I see the helicopter as part of the big yachting experience. So there's a number of different wishes from the owner team. What do you want on the yacht? So it's just other puzzle piece in the big puzzle to combine it. It can be a challenge. It's usually a huge challenge, but it's part of the puzzle.
We can see some of the pictures here, Daniel, that you've kindly shared with us. It clearly shows also perhaps the versatility of a helideck when the helicopter is not on board. These spaces can be used for multiple purposes, I guess. And that could be also one way of really effectively using these open, nice spaces.
Yeah, and there is a challenge to this also, because open deck is prime area on any super yacht. So we have to use it as much as possible. The challenge is from a heli operator, you want a proper helipad that can be used all the time. And from a crew perspective, there's also quite a lot of work with this setup and cleaning and storage of furniture and so on. So For the Explorer vessels, we usually have like a proper helipad certified, but for the smaller yachts, there is no possibility. We have to share it between multiple functions. Right. And that's always a challenge and will be in the future as well. Great. But we can do it nicely.
Yeah, I understand that completely, and I'm sure all of our viewers would share that feeling as well. We're going to talk more about this, of course, with our other panelists. I have one more question for you before I let you go. Can you give us a peek as a designer, and I know you guys are doing some really incredible work out there, how you see the short to mid-term trends evolve in terms of helicopters on board super yachts?
Yeah, I see one interesting thing that we have on a few yachts coming up, and that's actually drones. And it's not drones for people, it's drones for moving things, especially from the yacht to the beach, or if you're up on the mountain skiing or something. So imagine being on the beach and you are missing that cold beer. So you just call the yacht and then 5 minutes later it's coming flying to you. So that's a thing we see, that the helipad will be used also as a drone launching pad, and then we will have some hangars also for the drones.
That is a perfect teaser for a segment that we have right at the end. Daniel, I must thank you for this great start. You got to hold on, you know, because we're going to come back to you with some more questions at the end. Thank you. So moving on, we're going to now invite our next panelist, who is an executive from one of the most prominent shipbuilding yards, the Damen Yachting Group. And Jan van HOGERWOU is presently working with Damen Yachting as the commercial executive for them in North America, and he's responsible for all their activities in North America. Jan, great to have you here.
Thank you, Nitin, for organizing this wonderful event, and thank you for inviting us.
Well, I have to ask, that's a background, right? Or you're somewhere close to Capri or somewhere?
Well, if the letters weren't in the picture on the right upper side, I would say I was there, but unfortunately I'm not. It's Capri.
Perfect, perfect. Well, it certainly provides the right ambience for our discussion. So to get started, the first question I have for you really is, can you, as a yacht builder, can you give us a typical timeline between a finalized design to the ultimate delivery of a super yacht to the owner?
That's a complex question that we can answer several ways. AMOS is part of the Damen Shipyards Group, and not everyone might know that, but within the Damen Shipyard Group, we have approximately 1,000 to 1,500 naval architects on our payroll that do nothing than engineer and design ultimate hulls, alternative superstructures, GAs, etc. Most people know AMOS for building series of limited edition super yachts, and we usually start these super yachts on speculation basis, which means that we right now have approximately 12 yachts under construction, of which we still have 2 or 3 that we can sell. The rest sold somewhere during the design process. These, what we call limited editions, might allow you, between signing a contract and taking delivery, to actually take a yacht anywhere if you sign a contract and the yacht just started, it's 30 to 33 months. But if you buy a yacht that we have available and is 3 months away from completion, that whole process might only take you 3 months. We also built custom yachts, 100% custom yachts. Of course, there's much more design, much more input from from the buyer, from the owner in such a process. And that's a process, I mean, that can take quite some years. From the design stage to start of construction can take anywhere from 8 to 12 months. and then the whole construction and outfitting and delivery can take another 4 years right now. I think in the press, most of the super yacht people have read that we signed a very large yacht, actually the largest to date going to be built in the Netherlands, and you know, that takes quite some time. So yes. Different variations, and I would say we literally have a yacht, a 60-meter yacht and a 74-meter yacht right now for delivery next year that are not sold yet. And we also just started on the yacht, and it's going to be delivered in 24.
All right, so that's perfect. I think from what I understand from that, the biggest takeaway is that you guys work on two sort of approaches. You guys build some stuff on speculation, if I may call it, and then the other one is more like from the drawing board all the way to the delivery. Obviously, it'll take longer that way. Now,
correct, Nitin. And then, yeah, sorry to add to that. I was now speaking about our what we call white yachts, the AMOS yachts, but of course we also have the Sea Explorer expedition range of yachts, and we have the yacht support ships that adding to Daniel's remarks, are more and more becoming boats for owners to use.
Great. And so let me throw in a helicopter deck into this equation. At what time, what is the most ideal phase? I guess, obviously design, but let's say if at that point the owner or a potential buyer hasn't really made up the mind yet, what is the critical period in terms of that timeline where you absolutely need to know that the helicopter deck needs to be integrated? And is there a point of no return?
Yeah, absolutely. All our yachts are equipped with at least a touch-and-go helipad. Now, some of these yachts might also be equipped with a certified helipad. But a certified helipad, as you know better than I do, you know, requires firefighting systems, very often refueling systems, and also fuel and water drains. So there's a lot more to it. I would say if we take a 74-meter yacht, for instance, as an example, that has a touch-and-go helipad, and if the owner says, I would like to turn that into a certified helipad, we would need to know that everything is possible in the yachting industry, but ideally we need to know that within the first year. I think up to the second year, we might be able to still do it, but it's going to be very critical. I would say the cutoff is somewhere after a year and a half away from cutting steel.
Great, very, very clear. So now, in terms of the key trends that you guys see, you know, as a prominent shipyard building these amazing vessels, what sort of trend are you seeing in terms of the new super yacht builds? Are we seeing sizes become bigger? Are we seeing, you know, super yacht being taken along with an explorer vessel, like you said? Can you highlight some of the new trends?
Of course, and I think we are a perfect example of a shipyard that can see these trends very, very soon, because we have such a wide range of vessels, from 100% commercial to the absolute top of the class super yachts. As Daniel said as well from Tilburg, we see a younger demographics. We see larger yachts. We just signed the largest to build yacht in the Netherlands ever. But we also see functionality over gloss, as I always call it, especially in the North American market, where you have a younger demographics, and where people say, you know what, I love the idea of the ruggedized look. I don't need everything to be faired. I do want my luxury interior. That needs to be top notch, but not everything needs to be super yacht style. And whether that's called the Sea Explorer or whether it's anything in between, we see that trend, and I think that's a trend that will push on into the future.
Great. I have one more question for you, Jan. In terms of advising your clients for certified heli decks, We're talking about, obviously, the size is becoming bigger. We're talking about also more and more usage around the helicopter on board a yacht. How do you guys go about advising your clients and potential owners on having a certified heli deck as opposed to perhaps the other approaches that you talked about?
Yeah, funny enough, we don't really advise them to go certified or non-certified. Very often it's the customer that indicates his helicopter usage. There's many owners of super yachts or potential customers that say, you know what, I don't care about a touch and go pad. I don't need it. I don't fly the helicopter. And then we tell them, yeah, you know what, you could be in an emergency situation where you need to be lifted up for your own health, for a family member. And then suddenly they realize, you might be right, never thought about that. And then it's very handy to have that helipad. Of course, for resale value, that's another very good reason to have a helipad. Certified, if I'm looking outside right now through my window and I see La Dacia, a well-spoken of Sea Explorer expedition yacht, and she's about to be delivered, and that has a very much a massive certified helipad that actually lands 2 helicopters and can have 2 helicopters in the garage. There's a lot of interest in that concept, in the fact that you can have 2 helicopters on the helipad. So if you talk about trends, there you go.
That's very, very encouraging for us at ACH to obviously know. We are very familiar with La Dacia, as you know. And the thing is, one of the objectives behind our discussion today is also how collectively, our panelists know this as well, but even for our attendees, how we can collectively build a safer operation on helicopters on board yachts. So we're going to continue to talk more about this. Thank you, Jan. I'm going to come back to you later. And this brings us to our next panelist, who, as the chief executive of Edmiston and Company, is, as you all know already, Edmiston and Company is the world-leading yacht brokerage, dealing in basically super luxury yachts. I was just going to, in your introduction, I talked about you and I talked about Edmiston, but I didn't talk about the fact that you're also a helicopter enthusiast. So it's especially excellent and great for us to have you on our panel today. I know you guys also sponsor the heliport in London. So having you talk about helicopters on board super yachts was a no-brainer for us. So before we get started, you heard the other 3 panelists. Do you have anything to add around what we discussed around trends on super yachts and helicopters on board super yachts?
I mean, I don't think I can add an awful lot beyond what's already been said. The one thing I would say that we've noticed in recent years is that a helicopter is an amazingly useful asset to have on board a large yacht. And as Jan said earlier on in this piece, more and more yachts now are being built to be helicopter capable, either touch and go or in many instances carry a helicopter. And I think what we've noticed with helicopters is they change the way a yacht can be used. You have a far wider scope of usage. And to that end, I think that's why we have seen them become so much more popular in the last 10 years.
Right. So that leads me to the next question I had. Jan and Daniel kind of talked about it a little bit. What do you see when it comes to expedition yachts and explorer yachts? What do you see as some of the trends?
Well, an expedition yacht will by default have a helicopter on board. I mean, almost as a matter of course, you're going to see anyone who designs an expedition yacht have large space for a helicopter, possibly a hangar, and certainly the ability to travel with a helicopter on board. I guess, I mean, I don't know whether Jan would agree, but I don't think you can have an expedition yacht really without a helicopter on board. Then there's other large yachts that we see being designed and built nowadays. In my view, pretty much any yacht over 70 meters being designed today will have the capability to handle a helicopter, either touch and go, which more often than not now you see on the bow of these yachts, or the ability to carry one. And depending on what the owner's requirements are, how they plan to use the boat, that will define how the helicopter pad is, incorporated into the overall design of the yacht.
Right, right. And how do you see as in your business, what do you see as the state of the market right now in terms of transactions? Are you seeing a lot of activity, or is it low? Daniel talked about on the design side that it got really low at the beginning of the pandemic, but now it's crazy mad again. What's your view like on that?
Yeah, I don't think the yacht business is ever crazy mad enough in some ways, Of course, we all want to do more business. I think certainly when this pandemic started back in March, April, May, there was a complete stop for pretty much every part of the business. People were unable to travel to get to yachts. There were a couple of very rare exceptions where people managed to get to a yacht and see out the lockdown on board, but broadly speaking, it was very, very quiet. What we've seen in the last 4 months, really, I'd say since June, we've seen a significant increase in demand for both charter and indeed yacht sales. We have sold a number of yachts over the last 4 months, and I think in many instances it was owners who figured out that a yacht is a great place to isolate. So, you have aside from all of the comfort and the convenience, you have the biosecurity which exists on board a yacht that run to a very, very high standard anyway.
Right.
And they are easy to adapt to incorporate all of these new standards that you would normally have on board on a yacht.
And when you guys go through these transactions, would you deal with also the helicopter side of it as well?
We wouldn't get involved necessarily in buying the helicopter. We can give advice and guidance, and we frequently have done. We are involved in, if we have a client who wants to do helicopter operations, we'll normally introduce them to work with a business such as Starspeed. I know you've got Gary coming on in a minute.
Yes.
We understand the benefits of a helicopter on board a yacht. We understand the value it adds. We understand the convenience, but we don't understand, the actual operation, safety management, all of that kind of stuff. So, it's important to talk to the right people who have the right levels of expertise on the subject.
And that, I think you hit on a great point there, and that's one of the objectives behind our panel today, is how we can all collaborate as different stakeholders in the industry. And on that, I just have a reminder for all the listeners. If you have any questions or comments, again, a reminder for you to put them in the chat dialogue that you have on the WebEx. Jamie, coming back to you. In terms of private use and chartering, can you point some of the key differences?
Well, generally speaking, historically, yachts on charter don't tend to have commercial helipads, and therefore it's very, they cannot, when a yacht is on charter, you cannot operate a helicopter on board. We have seen in the last few years more and more yachts being built with commercial-ready helipads, and we actually represent a couple of those yachts, being Planet 9, Frederic, which is coming out shortly. Also, there's a large yacht called Symphony, which has a commercially rated helipad. So we are seeing that people choose to have commercially rated helipads on board their yacht. And actually, I'm going to have to defer to Gary, possibly, who will have more expertise in this on me, but it's all to do with the type of safety equipment which is built in, the deck, the material that's used on the deck, the firefighting equipment, etc., etc. But I mean, we definitely, private yacht usage, helicopters, you are now seeing widely used on large yachts. It used to be a very rare thing to see a helicopter on a yacht. 20 years ago, it was rare you'd see a helicopter on board a yacht. Today, I wouldn't say it is hugely common, but I would say it is. You see a lot more yachts which either carry helicopters or are certainly helicopter capable.
Right, right. Thank you. Of course, given your experience, long experience in dealing in super yachts, can you share an anecdote or a story around, I know when we were talking last, you have a few stories to tell. Can you share one for our viewers today, which basically shows a helicopter operation around a super yacht?
Well, I can't remember which anecdote I told you before, and it may not be repeatable today, but I think, look, there are the real game changer with a helicopter on board a yacht, and there's many stories like this, is the ability for you to bring guests to and from the yacht from a far greater distance. So historically, before helicopter usage became mainstream, you know, when a guest arrived, you would want to have the yacht parked within a few miles at most of the airport where the plane was going to arrive. Nowadays, that's presents all sorts of inconveniences and challenges. Not least, you have to often reposition the boat back from the place you're at to pick up guests. What it means now with helicopters, you are able to have your yacht positioned, you know, up to 100 miles, possibly a little bit further away from the airport where your guests or indeed the owners are coming into, and then it gives the yacht actually far greater range, or the utility of usage for the yacht is far, far greater in terms of the range. You don't have to send the yacht back to the airport, you send the helicopter. And a journey that in a yacht would take 12 hours, a helicopter can do it in, you know, a fraction of that time. So those are the real benefits, and there are many, you know, instances of where people have really, really benefited from being able to use a helicopter to get to and from a yacht.
Great, thank you, Jamie. One last question for you, and to put you on spot a little bit. And you're free to answer the way you like. If you had to name one yacht and one helicopter that is your favorite on the market today.
Well, I mean, gosh, that is really putting me on. Well, I obviously better say an Airbus helicopter, because that would be pretty rude of me to say anything.
Thank you very much.
So, you know, I think we see Airbus helicopters coming. We run the heliport in London, and we see them a lot. I mean, that new H160 looks very, very smart. And we have also actually on a couple of projects we're working on. I know we're going to have the new H145 with the 5 blades. And I know that we're going to see more and more of those coming onto yachts. I think it's a pretty helicopter. I mean, in terms of favorite yacht, there are many, many favorite yacht, you know, fantastic yachts. And if I think of a really fantastic yacht with a helipad on it, you know, there's a Lursen yacht called Ice, which is you know, quite a cool yacht with a big helipad. And of course, probably my current favorite yacht is La Dacia, which Jan's building. Not alone.
It is for all of us.
He's got some help from his friends to build it. He's not doing it all on his own. But, you know, this yacht in itself is a pretty extraordinary piece of engineering in so many ways, in terms of its size, its scale, its design, its capability. And I think when that yacht really starts operating widely with its helicopters on board, it's a game changer. That particular yacht in itself is really going to change the way people use yachts, explore, and indeed use helicopters.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Laure, can you hear me? Laure, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Excellent. Great. It's great to be connected again. Laure, maybe I'm going to move to you first, because you can hear me, unlike the others, and we're going to sort that out. Just to introduce Laure, viewers, she has a huge credit experience. She is currently working as a senior advisor with BNP Paribas in their dedicated division that deals with yachting and aviation financing. So Laure, I appreciate your time today. I know you are very, very busy, so we appreciate you really taking the time and connecting with us. How are you doing?
We are fine. I'm based in Geneva, so the weather is very, very rainy today. But usually we are very happy to be here, where a lot of wealthy customers are based. And thank you to you for inviting me. I mean, I'm glad to speak in this webinar.
Yes. Initially, I had your segment planned after having Jamie talk in terms of the trends around the sale and purchase of super yachts. But maybe I can start with you. Can you just give us a basic sort of view on how yachting and aviation products are financed? How are they structured?
Yes, certainly. So actually, business jets, super yachts, and helicopters are three different asset classes, and there are different markets. But in terms of financing this type of asset, there is the structure is the same, and there are common features. In Europe, most of the time, financing is part of a wealth management approach, meaning that for such financing, this is an asset-based financing, where the yacht, the helicopter, or the business jet is the main security for the bank. However, these luxury assets do not generate any cash flow for the repayment of the facility. And as a result, the relationship perspective is very important. So we rely to a large extent on the client's net worth and revenues, and we need to have information on that. So the typical structure could be a 5-year financing in euro for super yachts and helicopters, but in US dollars for business jets. It will be amortizing because these assets are depreciating. And we will have a security package, including the mortgage and the asset, but also a guarantee, personal guarantee or corporate guarantee, depending on the beneficial owner. So this is common for all those three assets.
Thank you. That's very clear. Now, my follow-up question to that was, as you know, ACH has a sister division within the Airbus group, ACJ. So between ACH and ACJ on the private and business aviation side, what we see is only a small fraction of helicopters and jets being financed. How do you see this on the yachting side? Is it quite the same or is it different?
Well, I think it's probably the same for both types of, or the three types of assets. Most of the transactions are, very likely to be paid cash. We used to say that approximately 10% of the transactions are financed. I think this is probably true also for super yachts. Although the banks may be willing to offer more financing, I really believe that in many cases, financing can help make deals happen, because it can bring, for example, liquidity during the construction phase where the beneficial owner prefers to use his own cash for other purposes. And it's also meaningful to have a long-term financing for long-term investments in order not to use such a huge amount of cash in one hand. I think most of the buyers do not think about financing, and it's certainly good to be in contact with them as early as possible, because it removes the mental barrier for the acquisition, which is probably the most important thing, and it also allows to work without any time pressure on the project with a partnership approach. But for the moment, I think most of the transactions are paid cash. We are happy to do more, and we are also happy to refinance these assets after the delivery to the customer, because it's possible also to monetize them, meaning to refinance the asset to
Absolutely.
Extract that for other purposes.
Right, right. So, because we're talking about helicopters on board super yachts, I have to ask you a question. If a potential owner was buying a super yacht and a helicopter along with it, how do you guys look at it in the financing world? Do you see it as a common product, or would you treat them as separate asset classes?
I think, again, super yacht and helicopter are different asset classes with different features. However, we can consider it as a unique transaction, as a deal, one deal.
A package.
Yes, as a package. So from a relationship perspective, it will be one deal, and the two assets will be treated as a package because this is the same beneficial owner, the same project, and also a global financed amount will be negotiated with the bank. So if we finance 50 or 60 million for one customer, it's one deal from this perspective. However, from a structuring perspective and from a transaction perspective, there may be different timelines in terms of delivery, different structures with different special purpose company for owning the assets. The registration of the helicopter may be different from the flag of the yacht. And so from a legal perspective, we have different constraints. So yes, it will be one deal for a unique client, but with each asset will be treated separately in each transaction.
Got it. With what you just told us, you know, financing isn't that sort of prominent. Obviously, if institutions like yourself have dedicated teams, I'm sure you see a lot of potential. So what would be your pitch to the listeners today in terms of really looking at financing when it comes to super yachts or helicopters or even jets, as a matter of fact?
Well, I think first of all, we try to provide financing solutions to our clients or to potential clients. And so there is no one pitch. I mean, we really try to find customized and tailored solutions for our clients and to provide advice when they need to. But if I had to say one thing at the moment, is that it's probably the right time to buy because, as it was said before, having a yacht for people who can afford it or a business jet is probably the best way to stay away from the crowd, not to have to go to the airport, and the most convenient way to travel as soon as the border will reopen. And the prices are also very reasonable at the moment. It's also certainly the right finance because interest rates are extremely low, both on the euro side because it's negative interest, and even also on the US dollar side. So it can be the right moment to secure a long-term financing with a very interesting pricing, very attractive. And so to free some cash for further investments because there will be investment opportunities in the future.
Of course.
So this is basically the message. I think BNP Paribas has also been providing this kind of financing for more than 15 years. And what we see is in many cases, it can be interesting for the client to have a kind of neutral partner at their side to help them to structure the project and to provide financing.
Perfect, perfect. So moving on, our next panelist is Gary Butcher. Gary is currently a commercial director at Starspeed UK. And basically, before his current role at Starspeed, Gary was also a partner managing the business at Starspeed before it was sold to Lux Aviation Group in 2017. And since then, Gary has been now focused on growing the yacht support side of Starspeed helicopters. They manage something like 11 helicopters on board super yachts, right from 60, 67 meters to 140 meters. So Gary, great to have you here. I know you're traveling. You're probably stuck in a hotel room somewhere. But we really appreciate your time.
No, not a problem. Thank you for having me, Nitin, and thank you for sweating me out to be nearly the last panelist. Thank you.
Well, we saved the best for the last, right?
Yes.
So as an operator that has successfully managed helicopters on board yachts, can you provide us some interesting facts around that, please?
Yeah, I think I've got the nice chap Nigel Watson to thank for getting me into yachting with helicopters in the late 90s. And at that time and the early years of my flying, it was a fairly gentle use. The owners would stay in the usual haunts in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean in the winter. I think the early adopters of yachts and helicopters, the Americans, were perhaps a bit more adventurous, but in Europe we were quite steady. But there's been a definite trend over the last few years to travel further, build bigger, of course, and I think customers now are looking more for experiences rather than just having a yacht to go to the same place as the regular crowd. So I think the experiences that people are wanting, the equipment they're putting on the yacht and subsequently on the helicopter is the big excitement at the moment. There's always still going to be the strange things. We had to fly somebody once. We were here in Croatia, where I am now. Chap wanted fresh mozzarella and tomatoes, so the helicopter's dispatched to Italy to bring back cheese and salad dressing. So those kind of things, bringing sand from the desert for the child's playpen, little crazy things like that, I think are all going to happen, always going to happen. But primarily now customers are looking for the experiences further afield.
Perfect. So just on a more serious note, when it comes to, a lot has been talked about, obviously approved heli decks on board super yachts. So what would be your advice when it comes to that?
Yes, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because to have the certified heli deck is always going to take more space, more resources, and create more hassle for the owner and the yacht building team. But people do want bigger aircraft now. People do want more safety. People do want the ability to operate their yacht commercially. So it's becoming almost mandatory now for any significant yacht and helicopter operation to be operated to a commercial standard. The way we fly, whether we're flying privately or commercially, in many ways is very similar. We try to adopt all the same high standards and regulation of commercial flight to private operations as well. We can make tailoring, make adjustments where needed so that the owner gets what he needs, but we always keep the flying standard as high as it would be if it was commercial. And I think with the cruise liners and so on that are coming along now, commercial heli decks, people are going to see that more, and I think it's only going to develop more.
Right. Well said. Gary, with all this long history of you flying helicopters on board yachts, what is one of the biggest myths or challenges that you've had to overcome? Why I say that is, perhaps in certain part of this industry, helicopters are still treated as a disruption. So how do you manage that with your clients?
I think it is always a bit of a disruption to the day-to-day operation of the boat, for sure, especially if you've got a heli deck on the back of the boat. I know it takes the crew a long time to prepare the area and make it safe for us to operate. But I think the biggest challenge overall has to be red tape. It has to be the bureaucracy of using the helicopter. Around the world, every state has its own rules. And even within Europe, where we have quite a central aviation regulator, every state still has its own particular requirements. And to research those before you go to a new country, to get your approvals where you can, I think that's the biggest headache and the biggest shame, to have to explain to an owner why he could just fly in Thailand, but now he's in Bali and he's not allowed because of security concerns to use his own helicopter. I think there's probably some local protectionism of local companies that stops that, but also it's just red tape, and that would be the biggest headache all round. Obviously, weather, sea conditions, getting pilots rotated on a basis that gives them the time off, but also gives the owner and the yacht the most flexible service. Those logistics are always going to be difficult, but overall, it's always red tape.
And I think we're all doing quite a good job now that over the last few years, as there's more and more momentum behind this, we're all talking to each other, all of the stakeholders are talking to each other, and there's more and more awareness being created. And we're going to talk about that a little later with our own in-house yachting specialist, Marc HENNES. But Gary, you told us about that you guys are soon going to be operating couple helis on board a polar cruiser. So that polar cruise that you guys have just landed up the contract with, can you tell us about what's going to be the usage of the helicopter, and do you see that as an emerging trend?
Absolutely. This is a very exciting market now. I think it probably goes hand in hand with the regular owners of yachts. The public now want experiences as well. So there's, I think, 3 ships around at the moment which are yacht capable, 3 cruise ships yacht capable. The one that we're going to start operating with next year is for a very nice company called Quark. And this ship, will have 2 H145s aboard. And this is to cater for customers that really want an adventure cruise to the polar regions, both north and south. The helicopters will be used for logistics and sightseeing and moving people ashore for experiences, kayaking, hiking, picnics, that kind of thing. So that will really set this company, this cruise offering apart from the run of the mill. And I think there'll probably be more coming along with that. And it's being done very well. And I think it's a really exciting segment to be in.
Excellent, excellent. One more question for you. In terms of how the maintenance and the upkeep of the helicopter is managed on board super yachts, can you give us a little insight into that? And is it like a turnkey approach that the operator provides to the owner, or does it work differently?
The way we do it, we handle the scheduling, the apportionment of the maintenance wherever it may be. We don't actually carry out the physical work ourselves because we have to be independent. The customer may be in one continent one day, and there's no point in us dragging the helicopter across the world just for an inspection. So we take it to wherever is most convenient for the customer. Some customers, would be happy to have an engineer permanently aboard the yacht. And that's particularly advantageous when we've got real intensive flight operations. We have some yachts maybe flying 300-400 hours a year. Others may be doing 20 or 30 hours a year. So, and those lower use customers, we would just bring an engineer aboard when we need him. The higher use customers, we have somebody aboard permanently, and we just remove it to a base facility when we need some heavy maintenance. But always with yachting, whatever you do, always at sea, corrosion is the enemy. It's a cancer that gets to us all the time. So we have to have very good rinsing, cleaning procedures to just try and keep the corrosion at bay as much as we can.
So lots of planning, lots of checking the boxes around logistics. So Gary, as we look at this photograph of yours, I just need to ask you a question around what is your most favorite helicopter? You don't have to, again, name the one that you're sitting besides.
Sure.
You have thousands of hours of helicopter flying experience on board yachts, on board sort of different missions and environments. Which one for you, when it comes to super yachts, stands out?
People will often ask me this, and every helicopter, like every car, every pair of shoes, is good for its own mission. I think you're always struggling with payload. So a helicopter that has good performance and good single engine safety is always going to be a benefit on a yacht. And also the yacht's getting larger. That means more people aboard. So we need seats. And really, and I know this is Airbus, but really the 145 is ticking the boxes at the moment. It's a small footprint. It doesn't take up too much real estate on the yacht, but we've still got the capability with 8 passenger seats in the back. So if prior to the 145, the 8-seat capability, you'd need to move up to something larger, Sikorsky 76, something like that, or 155. And they're just that much more complex, heavier, larger, and not so suited for the private yachting. So 145 is really kind of ticking the boxes at the moment. The downside of 145 is the skid gear. Skids are great for rough areas, but if all you're doing is airport transfers, you'd rather have wheels. Some airports in Italy, for example, you can't go there with a skid-equipped helicopter. But I think taking it on balance in the round, probably 145 is the best at the moment.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for your vote of confidence in another ACH. So on that note, actually, I need to now invite one of our own ACH in-house yachting specialists. Marc HENNES is based out of Airbus Helicopters North America and has an accomplished background being a captain of many large vessels, including cruises. And when Marc joined us in 2018 with our team in Airbus Helicopters North America, since then, Marc has been using both his yachting background and, of course, the fact that he's also a helicopter pilot very effectively with ACH, being a global ambassador for ACH as a yachting specialist. So, Marc, great to have you here. How are you doing? A bit early for you?
No worries, Nitin. I'm glad to be on this panel. I love, talking about helicopters and yachts. So, yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, so my first question for you would be, Marc, what are the major takeaways that you see, having been on both sides of basically the industry, on the yachting side and now working with ACH and Airbus helicopters? What are your biggest takeaways?
Well, I should mostly say that they're both very professional industries. The maritime industry, the yachting industry, aviation industry, very professional. And they have also similar levels of training and regulations. And it's all about safety of the passengers and the crew, whether it's on yachts or whether it's on big ships, or if it's in aviation, in helicopters or in airplanes. So those are definitely some overlapping areas. And some differences, I would say, are that a yacht, or let me start with the helicopter. A helicopter is normally based at an airport or in a certain region. And a yacht, really, especially a super yacht, they go worldwide. So that makes it a challenge sometimes to operate a helicopter on a yacht because it is in a different kind of environment. It is going all around the world. And like Gary just mentioned, there are different regulations. You need to have maintenance done. So, but luckily with our Airbus support network globally, this is one of the reasons that Airbus is often the choice of helicopter because of our large support network globally.
I'm going to have to rush you a little bit because we are really a little bit behind time and we need to move on to the Q&A as well. So in terms of integrating helicopters on board super yachts, can you talk through some of the things that we've done at ACH that are helping?
Absolutely. So I would say the biggest thing at ACH is that we're a one-stop shop. I mean, we have the in-house expertise, but we also have the support yacht network. As you can see by this panel, for example, we have designers, yacht builders, financiers. We have management companies that manage the helicopters, but also the yachts. I mean, it is a one-stop shop that you can go to, and we will be able to help to integrate helicopters on yachts.
Right, right. And can you highlight some of the recent tools that we've developed in ACH that make the life of all these, not only the panelists that we have today, but generally all the stakeholders across the yachting industry better when it comes to integrating helicopters on board yachts?
Yeah, actually, we recently launched an app. It's called ACH for Yachts, and you can download this on the App Store and on Android. And this, you will see here in the little video, it shows the helicopter. You can select our range. Then you can select, you can see what kind of values it has. For example, the length of the helicopter, the weights, and it also has augmented reality. So if you have a yacht model, you can place our helicopter on the yacht model in your showroom, and you can actually look around the yacht with our helicopter placed on it. So this is great for designers, for yacht builders, for owners to picture their helicopter or our helicopter on the yacht. So you can select what kind of yacht you want to put it on, but you can also use the augmented reality like shown here. That's a perfect picture right there. It shows the yacht with the helicopter.
I might also add that all these drawings are available for all of the stakeholders where we work with them and we can provide them drawings for them to integrate them into their designs.
Exactly.
Marc, one more question I have for you, because we are short of time.
Sure.
Recommended options list for yacht-based helis. Can you point some of the key options that should be on the helicopter when you're looking at those operations?
Absolutely. So the first thing that comes to mind are floats. If you're flying over water, if you have to ditch the helicopter, you want to have floats on it. That's the first thing that comes to mind. The second one is jettisonable doors. So they basically are doors for a quick escape. You can pull a handle and it will pop the doors off, so you can do a quick escape. Securing points, of course, are very important to lash the helicopter securely to the deck of the helicopter, of the yacht. Blade folding kits are very important to keep a small footprint. So, for example, to place the helicopter in a hangar or below decks. Corrosion protection, of course, because we're operating in saltwater environments. We also have heli covers. They come in handy if you do not have a hangar to protect the helicopter. Heli covers are also a great way to keep the helicopter in great condition.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. That helps. Before I let you go and we move on to the Q&A session, can you talk through this handbook project that you've worked on recently, and what's the idea behind that handbook?
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up, Nitin. So I've been approached by Marcella de Kernrooyer from Icon Yachts at the beginning of the year, and she had this idea to put together a super yacht industry handbook, so that people that are new to the industry or are already in the industry and want to learn more about it, they will be able to learn more about everything yachting related. So she put together about 10 experts, and they all writing a piece they all writing a chapter in this book. And she has asked me to write the yacht aviation chapter, how to integrate helicopters on yachts. And I pretty much share all the expertise that I've gained over the years in regards to helicopter integration and regulations, about hangars, about corrosion protection, anything that I've learned, over the past 10 years is in that handbook for the yacht aviation chapter. So we will definitely be talking about this and distributing this to our network later on.
Absolutely. So yes, we are very excited about that project, and we'll talk through our usual channels about this handbook further. So thank you, Marc. And now I want to move to all of our panelists. Thank you for holding on to your positions, because we have some questions that we'd like to address in this Q&A session now. There's a question that has been asked, which basically is about what sort of development avenues we see for the future, and are there any risks or barriers for a continued growth in this sector? And for that, I think I should bring Jan back from Damen Yachting. Jan, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, secure growth. I mean, obviously, our industry is very much connected to the global economy. If the global economy collapses tomorrow for whatever reason, the super yacht industry is going to suffer quite heavily. Having said that, a pandemic could be perceived as a global turmoil. And look what's happening. If any industry, and I think Jamie could confirm that, if any industry is, call it, benefiting from this, it might be the yachting industry, or call it the smaller boating industry. Small boats up to 90 feet, or yeah, call it small. It's not really small, of course, but up to 90 feet for us, it's small. But up to 90 feet is crazy. Super yacht is a little less crazy, but still, there's a lot of demand. People that were on the brink of buying a yacht, this is the reason to buy that yacht. People that have been living on their 60-meter, it's really a bit tight with the family. Actually, let's make that step for the bigger yacht. This is really what we see. So yeah, the economy is important. People still need to have money. These don't come cheap. more conscientious about the environment, going places, more green, battery powered. But there's a lot of incentive for people that can afford it to go places and enjoy nature and a clean environment and keep it that way. It's very important what we see.
Right. So actually, you've just perfectly queued up my next question, which was all around sustainability. Jamie, any thoughts on sustainability and what Jan said?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I agree with everything Jan has said. I mean, he's quite rightly pointed out that during this difficult time, yachts and boating in general has seen a lot of demand. I know that the leisure and recreational boating in the US saw a huge spike, really in the middle of this pandemic. I think, without doubt, people who own large yachts recognize the responsibility they have to set an example, to invest maybe in technologies and innovation that perhaps others would not have done previously. And we are seeing greater and greater positive influence with people when it comes to considering things like environmental footprint, waste, etc., etc. I think quite often the yachting industry is misunderstood. People associate yachts with, incorrectly, with pictures of rich guys sitting on the back of the yacht chewing a cigar, which is greatly misunderstood. A yacht employs, just the creation of a yacht employs many, many thousands of people who are working as, to create the engineering, the welding, the craftsmanship on board the yacht. It then, once it's been delivered, it's employing a large number of people, and when a yacht visits a port, it creates a very positive impact on the local economy. That is where yachting is actually very positive, very easily misunderstood, because it's not it's a greater headline to write about someone down the back of his yacht than it is to write about all of the positive impact. And I think yachting, obviously we're talking about helicopters today. There is a role for helicopters on board yachts, particularly in relation to environmental stuff. We are seeing more people discover and explore remote locations and witnessing firsthand the challenges that this planet faces. And, a helicopter, as I said earlier on, it helps expand what you can see. And I think really people nowadays, if you have been very successful in life, in whatever your industry is, if you've been fortunate enough to have the financial capability to buy a yacht, or any yacht or helicopter, whatever it might be, people I think are learning that let's get on and do it. Let's get on and do it, buy the boat, enjoy being with friends, enjoy being with family, discover new parts of the world. And I think all of that is the environmental element is a key part of many of those decisions, and people really do care that they do things in a way that is considerate for the planet in which we're all living.
Great, thank you, Jamie, for that. My next question is around innovation. What are some of the key highlights when it comes to innovative techniques, technology being integrated? Daniel, you showed us a little bit of a glimpse to that right at the beginning when you talked about use of drones to bring stuff onto super yachts. So can you touch upon that slightly and maybe talk about some other innovations that you see as a designer?
Yeah, so I think with all technical gadgets out there, they're coming a lot. Everybody is now having their home vacuum cleaner robot and stuff like that. And we see robotic chefs, and there's a lot of fun technology out there. So a lot of that will be implemented, and drones, that was mostly a funny gadget a few years ago, is definitely something that is becoming more usable and will be an important part of the yachting experience. In a few years' time, I know Airbus has been doing some research on that also. We might see drone helicopters replacing current helicopters, or be a complement at least. So that will also be very interesting. We see other types of aircrafts being deployed today. A lot of batteries. Everything will be battery powered. I see all the toys and tenders on the boat. So definitely environmental friendly, sustainable, and that's a big focus.
Right. We have a question from another question from a viewer. Can we bring that back? So the question, I think, would be best suited for Gary to answer. Gary, I think you covered it a little bit in your reply already around, skids and wheels. How do you see them in terms of the deck-based operations?
Yeah, I think overall, for what we're doing, probably skids is the better option. It allows you to go and visit those remote areas that people want to see now. It's all round. The only disadvantage really is during transfers to airports. Some people traditionally like wheels on a deck for moving the aircraft. Skids, you've got to have a trolley, but overall, I think having the ability to visit those remote areas, skids is probably the better option. The yacht designer, the yacht captain will probably disagree because we'll often scratch the deck or we'll get some water under the skids and leave rusty marks on the deck. But that's down to us to keep it clean.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Our next question. So how long until the term touch and go disappears and all yachts require commercial certification? Who wants to take that? Perhaps Jan? Or maybe I think the answer is in the session that we've had. If I may make an attempt to answer this, what we've seen is a very, very large industry. We've seen different kind of usages across the yachting world. So touch and go is just another way to be able to serve the yacht when there is no approved helideck available. Not all sizes of yachts perhaps will have the helidecks that are approved and certified. So I think maybe touch and go, obviously from a helicopter OEM point of view, we would like to see more and more of certified helidecks, but it is also a limitation in terms of the real estate available on the yacht. So this attempt of having a web panel, having the entire industry discuss more things around the table is a way for us to find a better way of progressing together. And perhaps in the future, we may have more trend of approved helidecks and less of touch and go, which, of course, has a little bit of a, shall we say, a risk element attached to it. So that brings me to the last, basically, point that I wanted all of our panelists to maybe weigh in on. If each of you can give us a key message that you want the listeners to take away through this web panel. I'll go in the same order first, maybe Daniel.
Try to learn as much as possible from more players in the industry, from the owner, from the crew, operators, and management teams, and also builders. They all have super important information to share if you just listen.
Right. Jan, your thoughts?
Yes, we're in changing times. Obviously, we don't know how this will affect all our future. I think what you have done now at the virtual event a year ago, no one would have thought about it to create it this way. It's great. We have to adapt. We have to adapt to a new environment that is applicable to the aircraft industry. It's applicable to any industry. My advice is make sure you can adapt to the new world.
Thank you. Thank you. And Jamie, your thoughts, please?
Well, I'm not sure I can give any particular advice other than to sort of reiterate what I said earlier on, is that, you know, I think once you've been on board a yacht where a helicopter has been available and used one, you quite quickly understand why it is such a fantastic tool to have on board. And as long as you've got a well-maintained machine from a good manufacturer with good pilots, then you know it really creates an enormous extra benefit to the yacht.
Thank you. Laure, over to you.
Same. I'm not sure I have a specific message, but I think we definitely need to combine the recovery from the current pandemic situation with a strong commitment to sustainability. And I think we should all help our clients, our common clients, to adopt a more sustainable way to operate their assets, because there is no alternative. And I think this is very important for this industry.
Thank you. Gary, your thoughts?
Yeah, agree with everything, of course, but I think we're all extremely lucky to be able to work in an industry like this, and we've all got some fabulous experiences and careers thanks to clients like this. So I think working closer together between the helicopter operator, the manufacturer, and the shipbuilder and the people that run the ship to try and get a more seamless operation, stop some little mistakes and things happening in design and so on. We can work closer together. That should make things better for the client. But overall, we've got to do it safely, because whatever effort we put in can be ruined by one sloppy bit of flying or operation or a mistake that makes a headline. So I think safety and respect the places we're going, respect the people that we're meeting, and just everybody get on well together.
Very well said, and I think it is a perfect basically cue for me to invite the head of Airbus Corporate Helicopters, Frederic LEMOS, onto the stage, as we would like Frederic now to just weigh in on this panel, what has been discussed so far, and also do a vote of thanks. So over to Frederic.
Hey, hi everyone. Very glad to be with you today, and thanks again to our panelists for being with us. Actually, my takeaway of today and the all interesting exchange that you guys had is I see that the marriage between yachting and helicopters, it's here to stay, and there's more and more trends that encourages the use of helicopters with yachts. And actually, I see that every one of us, and I see in the panelists, have a very specific domain of expertise, being it the designers, yacht builders, obviously chartering and managing the aircraft, which EDMINSTON does very well, operating the helicopter aboard yachts. We all have a contribution to this, and obviously we hold a community of people which are the trustful advisors in this industry. And as trustful advisors, for the benefit of safety and for the benefit of our customers, for a smooth integration and safe operations, we shall indeed work more together at the beginning of the projects to make sure this works out.
Thank you, Frederic. And my other question for you, and I think it would be a perfect wrap to this session today, is we've seen on our social media channels a certain video playing which shows our next generation helicopter with a certain Formula One car. Can you talk to the viewers today about what was the thinking behind that, and just tell us a little more about the project?
Yeah, as you know, we've just certified our last baby to come, the ACH 160, which is an amazing aircraft. And we wanted to try to find a very special way to demonstrate its agility, maneuverability, precision and control, speed, and actually a lot of efforts which are made by our test pilot in a very invisible way. So we kind of trying to find an industry that merged together with helicopters very well, and also with yachting. And actually, F1 came to be the very good idea to make that up. Le Castellet racetrack stands a few minutes away from Marignane, and it's a masterpiece in terms of scenery. So we thought and came out to this idea of putting together a chase between a F1 and the 160, and the video, indeed, the result is very cool. So I will leave it with you. I'm sure some of you have already seen it in the social networks, but we'll allow you in a few seconds to see the video again. But before I leave you with that, I want to thanks warmly again all our panelists. I know it has been a lot of efforts, partially to put that all together in terms of logistics, but also for your valuable inputs and exchange of information for the benefit of the people who are following us. And thanks to all of you that have connected to this first ACH Web Live session. And hope to see you soon in the next session, or physically if we go out all of this pandemic soon. Thank you very much.